Well, hello out there again, everybody. This is Marvelous Mark with something different today. As I'm recording this, today is September 4th, and on this date back in 1995, we had the beginnings of what would become known as the Monday Night Wars, because on this date back in 1995, we had the first ever WCW Monday Nitro, which emanated from the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what I thought was interesting about this show is actually the original announcers to the show were Eric Bischoff, Steve Mongo McMichael, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. And when I watched this back in 1995, originally, it's like I was just kind of thinking to myself, why is Steve Mongo McMichael one of the announcers on this show? Like, what does he have to do with wrestling? Like, I remembered him being a football player for 15 years. Spent most of his career with the Chicago Bears. He won a Super Bowl with them in 1986. And he spent the latter part of his career with the Green Bay Packers. And something I thought that was interesting to note is that Bobby the Brain Heenan was originally on the first episode of Monday Night Raw, which was on January 11th, 1993. And then you fast forward to September 4th, 1995, and here he is on the inaugural episode of Monday Nitro. So it's kind of an interesting correlation there. But another thing I thought was interesting about this, that they didn't have a promo out there with like Mean Gene Okerlund. They started off with a match between Jushin Thunder Liger against Flying Brian. It's like, I thought this match was alright. I didn't think it was one of their best matches of all time. And they did have quite a few back around that time. Actually, even going back to probably about maybe 1992 or thereabouts. But it was a decent opener to the show. It kind of got you excited. And Flying Brian ended up winning this match. And he was still kind of... He hadn't gone completely off the deep end yet. That didn't come until later, a few months later. But he was still that high-flying guy that you always knew that he was before he got his injuries and that. And it's kind of sad that about 2 years later he was gone. I mean, after he had one bad car accident, and that just kind of derailed his career. I mean, he was never really the same after that. And then they show Eric Bischoff. He's talking to Hulk Hogan, and I didn't remember this place called Pastamania. I had just moved back to Iowa probably about a month before, not even a month before, because I was living in Minnesota that summer. And yeah, I didn't go to the Mall of America that often up there. When I was living up there, but I still didn't remember a place called Pastamania. I'm sure it must not have lasted that long, because I sure didn't remember it. But and then it was fitting, and the next match on this card, on this inaugural Nitro, was Sting against Ric Flair. I believe it was for the United States title. Sting was the U.S. champion at the time. And I'm not going to talk so much about the match between Sting and Flair, because, I mean, it's kind of fitting that Sting and Ric Flair wrestled on the inaugural Nitro, and they were also the last match on the very last Monday Nitro back in 2001. So it kind of ended up being full circle. But this was really more about the issues that Ric Flair and Arn Anderson were having at the time, and it kind of culminated into a match at Fall Brawl, which would be a couple of weeks later from this. But really, another one of the big things that that happened in this match was the return to WCW of the Total Package Lex Luger. And I remember watching this, I'm thinking, God, Lex was just with the WWF. A week before he had made his last televised appearance at SummerSlam 1995. He was involved in that championship match with Diesel and King Mabel. He got all involved into that, but well, the story about Luger coming back to WCW, what was kind of funny is that actually the night before he had just appeared at a house show in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada for the WWF, and the next night he ends up appearing on Monday Nitro, and the story behind that is that he had talked to Sting about wanting to come back to WCW, and Sting basically had to beg Eric Bischoff to allow him to come back because Bischoff was not a fan of Luger either personally or professionally, and so he was just going to offer him kind of a downside deal. He's kind of trying to lowball him. He was only offering him about $150,000 a year, which was about 20% of what he was actually making in 3 years prior when he was the WCW World Champion, and when he dropped the title to Sting at that Super Brawl, which was on Leap Day that year, and when he originally gone to the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation. You'll remember that, don't you? How'd that work out, Vince? It kind of worked out about as well as the XFL, didn't it? But really, but Bischoff was going to just offer him that deal, and of course he was just going to offer him, thinking Luger's not going to accept that kind of a deal, and he was just going to go to tell Sting that, hey, I don't expect them to accept this deal, but hey, I tried getting him back here for you, and lo and behold, he actually accepted the deal. But this was kind of, and I mean, he just kind of shows up. He wasn't there for that long for that match, and that's kind of what was happening there. And then another interesting thing about this show was, I mean, you had Scott Norton, who had appeared in the AWA about 5 years prior. He was part of a tag team, but he had been wrestling for New Japan at the time, and he shows up on that Monday Nitro, and he's pretty much trying to get into everybody else's face. He's getting into Bischoff's face. Then the Macho Man Randy Savage was out there, and he's trying to get into his face, and this kind of shit. But then there's other people that were showing coming into WCW at the time. They had a little video package on Sabu. I didn't even remember him. There goes my phone, but anyway, I don't even remember Sabu really ever wrestling for WCW. It must have been just like a cup of coffee or something in between stints with ECW, but then later on you had a little backstage deal with Mike Rotunda, who was coming back to WCW as Mr. Wall Street, one of his many gimmicks, but then also the main event of this show was, this is 1995, so you couldn't have the inaugural Nitro without having Hulk Hogan on there, brother. And he took on Big Bubba Rogers. This match kind of just was what it was. It was more to set up something else. I mean, yeah, Hogan got the win as you would expect. I mean, it was basically your typical Hogan match, but really, what this was more setting up. You had the Dungeon of Doom coming out there. Kevin Sullivan was out there, and Zodiac, another one of Bruce Beefcake's old gimmicks from WCW. I mean, God, how many different gimmicks did Ed Leslie have in WCW? I mean, like, holy shit, he had. Well, he was Brother Brutai. He was Zodiac. He was the Butcher. He was the Booty Man at one time. Oh my gosh, I think he was even called the Man with No Name. It's just like, how many different fucking gimmicks did he have? Then you had, and then was it Avalanche? No, it wasn't Avalanche. I think John Tenta had been repackaged at this time, so I think it was Shark Attack. Oh gosh, he had a bunch of different gimmicks too, but basically you got the Dungeon of Doom trying to come down there and attack Hogan. So and then you get the return of Lex Luger he was kind of trying to fight off the Dungeon of Doom with Hogan, and then you got Sting and the Macho Man coming back out there, and Hogan and Luger were getting into it, and they were arguing and this and that, and so finally you get Mean Gene out there, and he's trying to get everything straightened out, and basically what it led to was the following week, Lex Luger challenges Hulk Hogan for the WCW title, and that's pretty much what you got on this opening episode of Nitro. You pretty much got the people that probably needed to be on this original broadcast. You needed probably your biggest names at the time in WCW on this show. Then you figure you needed to make a big splash, with it being a brand new show and all. I mean, you're going up against. You got WCW Nitro that was live, and half the time at that time, WWF Monday Night Raw was. I mean, like every other week it was live, but then they were taping more like later on the night to play the following week. So yeah, you had to make a big splash. So having the return of the Total Package Lex Luger to WCW, so I mean that's a pretty big splash right there. So anyway, I had fun watching this show today. It was fun rewatching it and kind of reliving old memories with this show, and I kind of know what you thought of the opening Nitro. Kind of tell me what you thought of. Just kind of tell me what you thought of the show. Just kind of share your memories with it and tell me what you thought of it. Leave your comments down below. Subscribe up above if you haven't. And I am the Marvelous One, Marvelous Mark, and I will see you all later.